Hello everyone, it's Jason here and welcome to a review for you. And well, do I have a review for you? Well, yes, but I don't quite have the phone at hand. As by the title you can tell that I'm going to review the Note 10. But as it turns out, I don't even need the Note 10 to review with you guys today. Because just imagine having my Note 9, which I'm recording with, and say taking away everything good about it, like the Quad HD display, the headphone jack, I mean, not that I really care for that, and let's us forget to mention the micro SD card storage. Take those things away and stick a ugly hole puncture right in the middle of the display, and that about sums the Note 10 up. Also, it's quite considerably more in price. And it really does beg the question, what is Samsung up to with this phone? Well, let's first go into a bit more detail, because as I said, I do have the spec sheet up and looking at it has almost made me vomit. Now, I'm going to just put the Samsung Note 10 Plus aside for now. As much of you will already be aware, that phone's specs do actually improve on the Note 9, which is the phone I have. The Note 9 I have, by the way, is the 512GB version with 8 gigs of RAM. So here we have if we're comparing just the Note 9 to the Note 10, we're seeing that the display is a 1/10 of an inch smaller. Well, that's great, isn't it? The PPI is over 100 pixels per inch less than that of the Note 9, and that means that the display is only full HD. Now, okay, so the screen to body ratio is somewhat higher. You're getting 91% with that Note 9 as opposed to the 83.5% on your Note 9. So the Note 10 has improved on that. Features in terms of video and all that sort of stuff remain rather similar. Again, looking at the main camera, Samsung has not outdone themselves this time to stick in the very same main camera. Again, 12 megapixels. Do you know, that's what they're going to do in the same main camera. Again, the second camera is you've got your 2x optical zoom. Now, personally, I was disappointed very much by that. The Note 10 Plus doesn't even do any better. It still only has that 2x optical zoom, whilst you have the likes of Huawei. I don't know if you know that, but Huawei has this periscope-like mechanism to achieving 5x optical zoom that runs parallel in the phone. I was hoping for something like that in the Samsung, matching that, or at least, or beating it even, I mean, you know. Okay, so we have on the third camera the ultra wide lens. Now that's kind of appreciated. I do like the fact that they've got that going for them at least, but then you could have just got yourself the S10 for that, because it's in that as well. Now, in terms of video recording, you're getting all the same functionality, all the way up to 4K resolution at 60 frames per second. Same that you got on the Note 9. I can record, by the way, in 4K at 60 frames per second, but because I'm not reviewing the product at hand, I'm just recording in 1080p because I want to first enlighten you on my thoughts. Okay, so the front camera, well, on this Note 10 you're getting 2 million more pixels, so that's from 8 to 10, big wow. I mean, would you even know the difference? Who knows? So yeah, in terms of the form factor and the weight and all of that sort of stuff, they're very much comparable. You're getting that waterproofing still on both of those. Now let's get back around to the multimedia aspect of this. In terms of headphone jacks, well, you can wave that goodbye on both devices, by the way. Now personally, if anyone's ever heard me speak on this topic before, it really is a matter of indifference to me whether there's a headphone jack in there or not. I'm perfectly comfortable using an adapter or dongle, you know, moving forward with technology to use digital via a USB Type-C adapter. Plus I also have very high quality Bluetooth headphones, and I would say that that is an advantage to having better battery. If you can fit an even bigger battery or exchange that component, the headphone jack is totally useless to me, and only feels like it's got another hole in the phone to have to worry about in case of water damage. Not that these phones can be water damaged, but let's say for example steam. Now Let's move on to the Qualcomm Snapdragons. So obviously the Note 9 had the A45, and with this Note 10 you get the latest editions, 855. Now, of course, it's been improved quite minimally. You're talking about 40 megahertz more. That is so unnoticeable. You've not noticed actually the difference there. To be quite frank, the main thing that they're improving on this is the architecture. They're now using a 7nm chip as opposed to the 10nm chip like they did with the Note 9. Now that can come with some problems in of itself, at least in the infancy of making a whole new architecture that's smaller, because with a smaller surface area comes more challenges to dissipating heat from a smaller area. So you may think that initially, what you may, if you could even notice the speed improvement on that, I don't think you could, but if it were the case, you'd find that in terms of how it's maintained over time, particularly with heavy gaming, that's going on for hours, it'll start to slow down because it'll start to overheat. Now the GPU is the 640 instead of the 630, so number does seem somewhat promising. Now as for the RAM, now the Note 10, and again this is what really annoys me about this, and I'll get to the analysis at the end once I run through some of these specs. Now the Note 10 is 8 gigs of RAM. My Note 9 is 8 gigs of RAM. Internal storage. Well, as I say, mine is 512, that's like half a terabyte. For the Note 10, you get half of it at 256 gigabytes. And if you are thinking of cheating it by installing a micro SD card slot, psych! You don't get that at all with the Note 10. The operating system is still Android Pie. Bluetooth 5, yeah, USB Type-C, still running strong. Yep, just looking through here, it doesn't look like, oh, and by the way, because, if you're going to remove the headphone jack to get more battery, then why not? Except you get 500 milliamps less with the Note 10 than you do with the Note 9, of course. So that's kind of run down some of the specs there, and I'm going to now talk a bit of pricing here. I've gone on Amazon to look at some of the best deals you can get at the moment for these phones. Compared now, I'm going to mention here a bit about the Note 10 Plus. So we've got here the Note 9, the Note 10 and the Note 10 Plus. Now, if you wanted my phone, right, which is half terabyte, you'd be paying around £720. My phone is better than the Note 10 quite considerably on almost all the dimensions you could measure it, and yet you'd be paying £150 more for your Note 10 at $870. And by the way, you'd be getting half the storage with no expandable SD card slot, no headphone jack, and a shit display. Now as for the Note 10 Plus, that would be coming in at £1,000, and that would give you the same amount of storage as my phone. Now, going on to resolution, again, I've talked about that, the RAM. Now, of course, if you weren't you didn't care about the RAM, you could have always got the Note 9 with 6 gigs of RAM, 128 gigabytes, okay, half of what the Note 10 is, but that would only cost you £590. And so, let's get on to the main focus of what I'm really trying to get at this video. Now the question of the title of this video is, why is the Note 10 so bad? Why is it quite clearly a backwards move by Samsung? Is it an accident? Is it a mistake? Or is there some more sinister motives at hand? And I'm going to tell you, yes, there is sinister motives at hand. It seems that Samsung is finally taking a leaf out of Apple's book. Now this is something that Apple has done with their phones ever since they brought out their Plus editions. And what they want the consumers to think about is this. They now, in the smartphone industry, are quite clearly reaching a point where they're really struggling to improve the phone anymore. They've kind of reached their peak. And Samsung hasn't been able to pull off what they're trying to pull off with regards to finding a means of installing a camera, a selfie camera, within the screen of the phone itself, and so it's really disappointed on that front. The Note series of Samsung's phones were always meant to be ahead of the game, and they were never meant to have been inspired by the S series. They were always meant to have superseded the S series. That's what everyone always loved about the Notes. All the way back to a Note 4. If you got a Note 4, it was better in every single way than the S series and had the innovation in it there and then. Now what we have here is a case where, because smartphones, they're now struggling just to improve them because they're not thinking about what Huawei does with their periscope cameras. They're getting to a point where they're so struggling to improve them that the only way that they can get people to buy them when they bring out these annual updates, these annual iterations, is to bring out a dual product that they don't actually intend to sell. This Note 10 isn't intended to sell. They're not trying to sell it. The Note 10 serves only as a proxy to make out that the Note 10 Plus, this official Samsung Note, is actually much better than it is and is an improvement on the old iteration, because people are going to be comparing the Note 10 Plus to this Note 10 as opposed to what they should be comparing it to, which is the Note 9. Of course, if you're comparing that Note 10 Plus, which has all the specs of the Note 9 and more, then it's going to seem like a great phone because you're comparing it then to a Note 10. But if you don't compare that same phone, that Note 10 Plus, to the Note 9, what are you getting more? What more is in it for paying something like £400 more? What more are you getting to pay £400 more? So what, you'll be getting 4 gigabytes more RAM? Well, that's great, isn't it? Get 4 gigabytes more RAM, of course, 8 gigabytes. I've, as I say, had my phone now for a year, and I'll very rarely go over more than half of my RAM. I normally have about 3 gigabytes to spare, and in case you are a bit tech literate, you should know that having excess RAM doesn't make your phone go any faster, right? It doesn't. Only if you are short on RAM will you find that your phone starts to lag, but providing that you have sufficient amounts of RAM, the processor will do the job just fine. Now, another thing with these Snapdragons is another problem. Like if you're comparing the Note 10 Plus Snapdragon 855 to the 845 of the Note 9, you'd be thinking, well, what's really improved? They've made it a bit smaller. Well, does that even bother you when it's an elderly phone? Do you actually notice that it's smaller? And what, by how much? 3 nanometers. So they made it microscopic, in fact, nanoscopically smaller, and yet it has barely improved in clock speed at all. It is just 40 megahertz more per core processor. Whereas in previous iterations, say if you were comparing the Note 9 to, say, the Note 8, you'd be improving by something like 200, 300, 400 megahertz in the processor, which would actually be a bit more noticeable than a mere 40 megahertz. It's not even a tenth of a gigabyte. So that's that, and also the RAM question I've addressed, but the storage, the Note 10 Plus has half a terabyte of storage, but so does my Note 9. My Note 9 has half a terabyte of storage, my Note 9 has 8 gigs of RAM. So if you were comparing the Note 10 Plus to the Note 9, you'd be thinking, well, it's not an improvement at all, why buy? And you wouldn't buy. So they bring out this proxy device, the Note 10, to take everyone's attention away from the Note 9 and have people comparing it to the Note 10, so that people think that suddenly it's an upgrade because they've now got you thinking about the specs of the Note 10 as opposed to what it should be being compared to, which is the Note 9. In fact, you could even compare this phone. This Note 10 could even be compared quite easily to the Note 8, and if it were for the Note 7 exploding, it would be better than that. Which is a horrible thing to say. What's horrible to say is that my mum's phone downstairs with its Quad HD display and its micro SD card slot and its headphone jack, though I don't care about that, is actually a better phone than this Note 10. I find that absolutely astonishing that this is the case. I can't believe Samsung is disappointed on this. Remember, the Note 10 is really the 10th anniversary of Samsung, well, 10th anniversary, 10th edition. It was meant to be the breakout phone, the phone that culminated and showed Samsung really what it's made of. Now remember when Apple hit their 10th generation, the iPhone X, they really upgraded their iPhone X considerably. They finally went ahead with an OLED display. They've actually made the display bigger, they made it virtually bezel-less. And it was a mighty upgrade to signify that it was a 10th iteration device. It's a good big number. Whereas Samsung have done a complete flip side on that. I'd rather them have not released a Note this year at all. If they were really at their wits' end where they could no longer improve these phones, I would rather them have just maybe waited another year. Waited another year than try and sell us this bullshit. Now, as for the display, I would rather them not be doing this hole puncture in the display like they've gone and done with the Note. You know, the Note is primarily written on with your S Pen, your Wally pen. You write on your little Note with your S Pen, and you don't expect any intrusion on the display. What that hole puncture is a total insult to our intelligence. This phone here, if anyone has a Note 10 that they purchase as a phone to replace their Note 9, consider that a commercial IQ test that signifies that they don't come over room temperature levels. And I hate to have to say that, but it's true. And that's the problem here. It's blatantly obvious what Samsung's gone and done, and it's really disgusted me in every single way. I was really hoping to see something amazing. I have high hopes though for the Note 11. I think a year from now, I'm really hoping to see something like a 5 to more, in fact, in terms of the telescopic abilities of the camera. I'm hoping to see an improvement on that, you know, because Huawei have managed it. So Samsung, being a Korean-based company, you know, very close to China with, you know, these smart engineers, or so we thought, should be able to do it. And if we can't, then something's going awry. Now, I went into a Samsung store and I got the opportunity to hold a Note 10 Plus myself, and it almost seems like you could almost get away with it with this thing in the middle when you're waiting for the display. But you try going on video, you try watching a video that is widescreen, and I watch a lot of movies on my phone, and particularly with YouTube videos that you know, you've got tech review channels which you can expand to full screen. That is a massive intrusion. That little hole puncture, yeah, I cannot get over it. And to be honest, I don't even know why they thought, oh, I know what we'll do, we'll put it in the centre of the display. It's actually made it more noticeable and more of an intrusion. I actually find that it would have been just better for them to have left it to the side. Remember, with this Note 10, you don't even get your iris scanner anymore. They take the iris scanner away because they're so hell-bent on this idea that the phone has to have this screen to body ratio of like 100%, 110%. Nobody cares ultimately about that. Nobody ever asked for it. I never. I would be perfectly happy, right, with a little bezel at the top which packs all the best specs a phone can have. The best front camera, if you want to put a dual or a third camera in there so that you can get ultra wide selfies, which would be brilliant. If you want to add the iris scanner, I would like an IR blaster. I think they're very handy. I hate the fact that I still have to go back to my mum's Note 4 just to get to use that for the occasional times when my remote goes awry and gets wet. It's just so sad. Now, as for the S Pen, I mean, we've all seen the videos of them trying to make out that you're some sort of Harry Potter qualified wizard, waving it around just to flick through, just to flick through the camera settings. What person is ever going to do that? Now, I can understand where you press the button on the S Pen to remotely take a picture, because you might set up like a tripod like I've got now, and I've done this before. I've taken the S Pen from a distance and I've clicked it, right? But the idea that you're going to be holding the phone right in front of you and waving the S Pen about just to change the settings in the most bizarre circumstances, instead of just using the S Pen for what it's used for and actually touching it to the display, is absolutely absurd to me. Samsung, you have done shit here. You really need to get it together. You need to get your act together, because what you've done here is produce a pile of utter garbage. You need bloody therapy, to be quite frank with you. I mean, Samsung is utter disarray. I mean, they're going the way of Apple. Now, at this point, really, I'm just rooting for Huawei now. I mean, my friend's got a Huawei. I do hope that this new software that they're bringing out to compete with Android is going to be a massive hit, because I want to see competition back injected in the smartphone industry, because at this point, there is none. the Samsung and Apple have essentially formed this trust with each other where neither one is going to be improving their phones significantly over the other, providing that they have a like this duopoly on the market. They're happy to be placed there. That's why they've all lobbied together to try and get Huawei basically banned out of the market through legislation. But I'm still rooting for Huawei. I think Huawei has potential, and I'd like to see some sort of imperative put upon these phone companies so that they start innovating again. So yeah, that was my review for you. Now you're probably wondering, well, am I going to buy the Note 10 to show you it yourselves? And the answer is no. I will never buy that phone. The phone is absolute rubbish. You should not buy that phone. Don't buy that phone. Do yourself a favour. Buy yourself the Note 9. Get the if you really want the power specs on it, get yourself the 512GB versions, half a terabyte in there, 8 gigs of RAM, more than you'd ever need. Doesn't have an intrusion display. You can expand the memory up to half a terabyte, and it's a Quad HD display, which it almost seems ludicrous that I'd even have to say that. I was actually hoping at some point phones would start getting 4K displays. I didn't think in my wildest dreams that it'd ever go backwards. I mean, I can't believe how ludicrous that is. That's just such a step backwards. It's like I just woke up having been sent back in time to the news of this Note 10. So yes, I couldn't be more disappointed. Well, thank you for hearing me rant and rave a bit about the phone, but I had to get it out there. I will have some other reviews coming up shortly, actually. I know I haven't been posting to my channel lately, I've just been really busy. And hopefully with my next review I'll have something positive to talk about, because today is just all negative. I've been Jason. Share my commentary, let people know about the news so they're not fooled by this marketing ploy by Samsung. And until then, goodbye and see you next video.